This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's Monday, the start of the week. A very exciting time because it's our live drive with you. We're just watching these giraffes. There's a journey of them. Just had a little drink and resting in the sun. So everyone, buckle up. It's the start of the week and it's time for your live safari through the African bush. Welcome to Tswalu Game Reserve, everyone. It's a very hot day, 26 degrees Celsius and 79 degrees Fahrenheit. So for winter, it's very, very hot for all of us. The giraffes and myself, my name is Lauren, and BK, who's my cameraman today. So they just had a little drink at the water hole, but for a giraffe, it makes them very, very nervous because they're vulnerable to predators. This is a journey. There's 4 of them, and there's actually 5 of us coming from 5 different locations all across South Africa today, but you have 6 safari vehicles. So hopefully today is going to be really, really exciting. Who knows what we will see? But before I forget, please do talk to us. Send in your comments and questions using the hashtag WildEarth on Twitter or at FC on the YouTube chat stream and on Twitch. So we look forward to hearing from you very much. The giraffes are all around for the delicious knobthorn flowers, which I shall point out to you later. That's their favourite. Tom, we are in Tswalu Game Reserves, but soon you're going to see other people in different parts of South Africa. But we are on the western fringes of the Greater Kruger National Park in South Africa. We're in an area called the Sabi Sands, and it's the northern Sabi Sands. We're very lucky here for all the wild animals that we're able to see. I think I'm just going to reposition slightly so we can see these giraffes, but also give them plenty of room. Hopefully we can get a better view soon.
So while Lauren is looking at some giraffe drinking, we've also come to a watering hole this afternoon. Welcome to all our viewers, to and beyond Ngala, and we are looking at a tranquil scene at a watering hole with some hippos in here. I know they're ducking at the moment, but if we look in the corner, they're quite far off. In the northern corner of this watering hole, we can see the pride of lions that we found earlier today. As you can see, there's some light reflecting off those white bellies, a tail flicking up and down here and there. See, the sun has moved. Some of them are out in the sun, but most of them are laying in the shade and doing what lions do with most of their time during a hot day, and that's sleeping. Myself, I'm Yapi, and behind the camera we have Owen. And this afternoon we were hoping to come and have a look to see if these lions might have attempted a hunt earlier on and something might have changed. But as we can see, nothing's changed yet. I do think it would be a very good idea to come back here a little bit later, once there might be a little bit more activity and the wind has picked up and the area cools down. And who knows, when the animals come down for their late afternoon drink, we might even have a chance to see all of these very lazy lions be a little bit more active than they are at the moment. Butterfly, what a good question. How many hours do they sleep in a single day? I guess it depends on the day. I think it's mostly weather dependent. If you have a look at the difference between their sleeping patterns in the summertime and the winter time, what I've noticed is that in the summertime, when it's very, very hot, from early morning when we find the lions, they are flat down until well into the evening. Once it is cooler, this time of the year, today was slightly warmer, but normally it's quite cool. And if there's a breeze blowing, then the lions are a little bit more active during the day, sometimes even hunting late morning or early afternoon. But their sleeping habits, they can sleep anything from a few hours to up to 22 hours a day if they really had to. I've seen one male lion before on a sand dune in the Kalahari. I've seen him there for 3 days in exactly the same position after he's had something to eat.
Hello and a very warm welcome to and beyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. My name is Damon, and behind the camera this afternoon we've got Craig, and we've come out this afternoon into the southern parts of the reserve in search of lions and rhinos. And somewhere up on that rocky mountain behind me you might just be able to catch a glimpse of the ear of a lioness. So we'll just let Craig zoom in there. There we go, lying flat on the very top of that mountain. You might just be able to see her head and her ears. And now when she's lying so still, quite difficult to see her. But when we first arrived, she was sitting upright and scanning the plains beneath her lofty perch. I don't know if you can hear, but there's a bit of a breeze that's blowing here this afternoon. And so up there, high up on that mountain, she's able to keep nice and cool. The sun is quite intense, and all the other animals down here on the plain where we're currently parked, they're all seeking shade, but up there with that cool breeze, she's able to keep cool and also keep a lookout across her territory, looking for any signs of potential prey or potential danger. And for those of you who've been following the show for the last couple of months, this is one of the lionesses, one of the mothers of those 5 small cubs. So I wouldn't be too surprised if those cubs and the other lioness are somewhere up there in amongst those rocks, just taking it easy and resting during the heat of the day. Nikki, you're asking how long a lion can survive without eating. Nikki, probably about maybe 2 weeks, maybe even a little bit more. But from there onwards, kind of from 4 or 5 days is when a lion starts to show signs of being visibly kind of hungry or malnourished. So they can go for quite some time without food, but normally they'll want to eat every kind of 3 or 4 days to stay in tip-top condition. Of course, it also will depend on what they're eating and how much they're getting to eat at a time, but a couple of weeks at a stretch. Of course, this lioness, having these little cubs to feed, they'll be needing to kill things more often than other lions just to keep those little ones fed. At this age, those cubs probably about 3.5 months old, so they will be starting to wean off of milk, but they will be needing to suckle from mum every now and then. And I think myself and Craig are going to sit here for a bit longer and hope that they maybe lift their heads or become a bit more active.
Well, we've came to one of my favourite pans here, and I just want to point something out on this incredible tree before I fall in the water. Look at all these weaver nests. Now they're completely empty now, they're no longer active. They were made in summer, and winter is basically the time for them to completely just fall apart. And well, it all starts again next summer. I found one. I'm going to give it back to you and show you all, but I just wanted to point out this water body. So still a lot of water for winter. And you can see the algae. I wonder if this could go wrong. There we go, everyone. I've got some algae for you. I'm a bit of a water baby. Algae happens to be one of my favourite things to study. And this is obviously freshwater algae. And it's growing in such great numbers because the water pool is stagnant. So I found a nest for you all and some algae. Love this smell. I'm going to explain why it's grown in just a moment. I want to show you that. Now you can see the size of it next to my head. It's really large. This is a large nest by a tiny bird, by the weavers. And what they've done is used their beak, which is very small, and they've intricately, I'm going to pull it apart, designed this nest. It's so intricately woven, that's why they're called weavers, in case you didn't get that. And there's a little entrance here. Inside, this is where the female goes in and actually lays her eggs. This is incredible. This is such a fascinating structure. This one was on the ground, so don't worry, it won't be reused. They don't reuse their nests. The male he's not monogamous. So what he does is he's brightly coloured, and he's going to build all of these nests one by one to say to the ladies, hey, look at my nest, pick me. Once he mates with that female, he leaves her, and then he'll make another nest, and he'll say to the other ladies, hey, look at this, pick me. He's said to make up to about 50 different nests in the breeding season, and it normally takes him about 12 hours to construct this. Can you believe that? 12 hours. And it's obviously strong enough to support the weight of eggs inside and a female. It's amazing. And of course, once it drops into this ecosystem, into the water, into the soil, it will just be recycled. And this is a nutrient cycle of the environment out here. It's important that nutrients in any sort of wild environment are recycled. Even when trees topple over, that's part of the nutrient cycle process in the soil. So I'm going to leave this exactly where I found this, but I just thought this probably held some eggs and was the birthing place of some new chicks. So off you pop back into the water, and we are going to continue bumbling south.
So we're back on the edge of this watering hole, and we've just seen a couple of these lines get up and reposition. Now it looks like some of them, or more of them, have actually moved out of the shade, and the breeze has just picked up quite drastically as well. Now I know they're quite far off, and a little bit later this afternoon we might move over to get a closer view of where those lions are. You can just see some ears flicking and a tail flicking. I'm sure by now laying so close to each other on such a hot day, they must have a little bit of a smell coming off them. And the flies are attracted to that, and that in turn bothers them to the point where they want to get rid of them by flicking their ears. Now this watering hole where we are, and I know even though they're laying with their backs towards it and they don't seem too concerned, this is the perfect area to set up an ambush for a hunt. It's a large watering hole. If you look at the ripples on the water, you can see the direction that the wind is coming from, which is off to our east. And those lions are laying on the northwestern corner, which means that anything that comes from the eastern side to come and have a drink will be unaware of them. Now they do have quite a bit of distance to cover if they want to attempt a hunt later on, and they're going to have to do that as quickly as possible in order to stand a real chance. But at the moment it's still very hot, and the animals in the nearby clearings, which we won't be able to see from here, might start to make their way down once it cools down even more. Shenzi, they had a little bit more spark in them this morning, and yes, they do look exhausted at the moment. I think it's only because it's so hot and they are animals covered in fur. And they have been moving a lot during the night time. They probably tried to hunt. They probably moved a far distance from where we saw them yesterday. We're not sure exactly where they roamed during the night, since their tracks moved off the reserve and then back on this morning. But I'm sure they've covered quite a bit of distance, and a lot of movement made them come lay down here to reserve their energy for the nighttime. Sinek, have I ever seen lions cross water? Yes, I have, actually, in this very watering hole right here. I have seen a lion before chase a waterbuck through the northern end of this watering hole, and I just saw them briefly cross through it. It wasn't very deep, to be honest, and I've never seen lions in deep water except on videos or movies about it, but they do occasionally have to cross water. I have also seen in the summertime when it rains a lot, I have seen them move through the Timbavati riverbed, through the shallow water. But it wasn't really swimming. Now they can swim. I know there are lions in the Okavango Delta that occasionally during their wet season have to move from one island to the next to follow herds of buffaloes, which is the big prey species that they hunt in that area during the rain seasons or the wet seasons. And in that case, those lions are well known for having to swim at certain points. But it's incredible to think that with the scene that we're witnessing now, where they just flat down, almost no movement. I mean, if you had to walk here like most of the animals that's come down to drink today, nobody would know that there's lions in the far off corner of this watering hole. But it's amazing to think that once they do get active, they exert massive amounts of energy. Some lions, some of these lionesses in this pride is well known for being very large and very strong, and therefore to run and to take down large prey animals, they pretty much use every ounce of energy that they have.
Good afternoon from another fantastic and yet in some ways sad afternoon at Tswalu. My name is Dylan, and we've got David on camera, our legendary David, just doing his amazing work. It's a fantastic afternoon, like I say, but also sad. Those of you who weren't with us this afternoon, we actually got the Shelduck family, the male and the female with the 9 chicks.
Sorry about that, everyone. You're back with us, and luckily we are admiring these warthogs with their warty piglets. It's actually been a while since I've seen warthogs. You can see the youngsters, they're getting much bigger, but you can still see there's 1, 2, 3 little piglets in the middle, and then the adults on either side. Now, warthogs really are the perfect target for both lions and leopards. So they tread the land out here very cautiously. And you see this one that stopped just here? Yep. That's actually fake tusks sticking out, and it baffles me every time I see it. It's just hair that's sort of specialized to look like the tusks. So what that means is they look more formidable than they actually are, because they're youngsters. They don't have these huge tusks that the adults have, but they're trying to appear like they do. So right here, this one, it's just hair. It's just white hair growing out the side of their head to give the appearance of tusks to the predators, which is just really almost adorable, I must say. They live a long life, warthogs. They can live up to 18 years in the wild, but that's if they get the chance to. Leopards, especially male leopards, are known to really love a good warthog snack. And I've watched lone lions, not a pride, it wouldn't be enough to feed a pride, but lone lions up in the Masai Mara also hunting warthogs. So although they're short, they actually weigh a lot, pure muscle. Males come in at about 80 kilograms and females come in at about 65. So I'm almost at the dam, and I'm very excited to see who's going to be drinking there. Okay, everybody, we are going to take a nice jolly bumble down to the dam. I still have a lovely clump of algae on my gar. I will get to that in just a moment, but I want to head down to the dam and see if anybody is there. If not, at least we hopefully we'll get lucky with some hungry hippos.
Welcome back to and beyond Phinda Private Game Reserve, everyone. That lioness that we were with, unfortunately, stood up and walked over the back of the mountain, and there's no way that we can possibly get up there to catch up with her. So I think myself and Craig will come back to this area a little bit later when the sun is going down, in the hope that her and the youngsters come out and start to play on the rocks. In the meantime, though, we've come down to a little waterhole, and we've managed to find a woolly-necked stork. And we've been watching it as it's been wading around through the algae there, using that long bill and its sharp eyes, well, its sharp eyes to spot prey, and then that long bill to catch it. And it will be looking for things like fish and frogs and little aquatic invertebrates. Or don't have to necessarily be aquatic, even in that long, see that long grass behind it there? That lovely long and lush green grass. There could be things like grasshoppers and different kinds of herbivorous insects, and that's exactly what this stork will be looking to try and catch. For the time being, standing very still. Of course, when it stands still like that, it enables it, gives it the chance to scan for any prey. Sassy Cassie, you're asking what kind of fish might be in this waterhole. Sassy Cassie, there could be, I don't think in this waterhole that there'll be any particularly large fish, but things like tilapia and maybe even some small catfish. And catfish, of course, being able to, when it rains, being able to wiggle out of waterholes and actually use kind of runoff to move between waterholes. So even in a small little pond like this, there could be catfish lurking. With all that grass in there, there's plenty of places for them to hide and for their prey to live. So more than likely lots of food in there for little fish. And that's probably why the stork is here, Sassy Cassie. Well, most definitely why it's here, to look for any signs of potential prey. I think that a catfish, at least an average size catfish, would be a bit too big for this woolly-necked stork to catch. And I think myself and Craig are going to spend a bit of time here and hopefully watch it catch something. Please, okay. Terribly sorry for that, everybody. I believe there's a bit of technical issues. Of course, being out here in the African wilderness, you can't always be in complete control of the technical side of things. I suppose that's part of the fun and part of the challenge of bringing you a live safari from the wilderness. We're still with the stork, and we've been watching it now, myself and Craig, as it's been probing into that algae with its bill. Look at now how it's pecking there into the algae and in between the reeds. It might be able to feel its prey as it does that. I don't imagine it would be able to see too well in between the bits of algae there. But no doubt lots of different aquatic invertebrates that will be hiding in there, trying to shelter. Bubbles, you're asking an interesting question. You're asking how storks will cool down. Bubbles, different stalks will have different means of cooling down. So a woolly necked stalk doesn't necessarily, well, I suppose it will be able to open its wings and get some cool air blowing into its wings and onto the veins and skin on the inside of its wings. And even just walking in the water there, Bubbles, it's of course got that bare skin on its legs, or the bare scales on its legs, that will help it to regulate its temperature. But what I was going to get to, Bubbles, is that some kinds of stalks, like a stalk called a marabou stalk, does something quite disgusting. I don't know if you've ever heard about it, but it will defecate on its own legs. And what that does is that it helps to cool the stalk down by evaporative cooling. So that wet kind of feces, if you will, that runs down the legs, then cools and dries and helps to cool the stalk down by evaporation. This stalk, though, luckily, doesn't do that.
Right, we are also at a waterhole. We don't have any stalks here. I haven't seen a stalk here for quite a while. But we do have geese and a few lapwings and other things. It's just a lovely afternoon. We've actually come here hoping for some big cats. Hi, my name is Mike. Behind the camera we've got Gert, and you're joining us here at Eco Training's Pridelands Conservancy. And we are here at Leopard Dam, which this morning lived to its name. We find
Right, hello everybody. I do apologise for that rather sudden departure from Mike at Pridelands, but what I am doing here is investigating a warren wherein live, I think, some aardvarks. My name is James Henry. On camera today is the great Theodore, and we are investigating an aardvark burrow. Now, this particular aardvark burrow may or may not be occupied currently. And the only way for me to tell that would be to stick my face in there. And if there was a warthog there instead, well, it would then probably give me a nasty concussion. So I'm not going to put my head in there. But what this aardvark has done is that it's come here during the night and it's dug itself a hole, probably to find termites or ants. That's what they do. That's what they eat. And then it may well have slept here. Now, they'll have a number of these sort of temporary burrows or refuges around their territories or home ranges, and this would be one of them. And it wouldn't have taken the aardvark very long at all to dig this. They can dig faster than a man is able to dig with a spade. We also don't want a black mamba to come herring out, do we? Might be quite nice for you, not so nice for me. There are no flies there at all, and so normally you'd expect there to be flies if there was anyone in residence, and there are also no fresh tracks going into the burrow, so I don't think it's occupied at the moment. Now, what we're doing is hoping to find some wild dogs which were around here this morning. Unfortunately, thus far, our afternoon has not been particularly successful, but I am pleased to have found an aardvark burrow because, well, it's always nice to know that they're around. We don't see them very often here because they are strictly nocturnal in this part of the world, and that's because being nocturnal helps them avoid many of the predators that exist here, such as lions and leopards and hyenas. Taylor, remember that when you ask about what the most common animal is, what you're asking is me to include a list of all the animals, and animals include all the insects and the spiders and that sort of thing. So it would probably be, I would say, a species of termite, maybe the fungus-growing termite, Macrotermes natalensis. That's probably the most numerous animal out here. If you're talking about mammals, then I suspect what's quite, well, I know that the most common mammal out here is an impala. I don't know which one you meant, but remember that animals include all of the mammals, the birds, the fish, the amphibians, the reptiles, and then, of course, all the insects, the arachnids, the spiders, the mollusks, the crustaceans, all of the invertebrates as well. And in terms of biomass, animal biomass, termites make up far more than, say, even elephants do. There are just millions and millions of them under the ground working really hard to keep the ecosystem in the state that it is. They take all the dry grass underground, they turn it into some sort of food for themselves through growing fungus on it, and that really does make a massive difference to the shape of the ecosystem. So we're going to head off and see if we can find ourselves some wild dogs. I hope that we'll be lucky. That would be very special. Righty, now what we're going to try and do is just move down there. I know Aubrey's also in this block. Aubrey's a guide, of course, from Djuma. Aubrey, do you copy, Aubrey? Orbs, have you had any luck there? Nothing. Alright, so we've got nothing going on at the moment in this area. We'll carry on the search.
So what I was saying earlier is it's very sad. There's two of these little ducklings that are missing, but the others seem to be fit, fat and healthy, and they're out foraging. There is actually one sleeping on the bank at the moment with the adults, but these little guys that we focus on here seem to be doing really, really well and are very, very actively feeding. So, and we actually found the body of the one little duckling, and the other one's completely gone, so I'm assuming it was a predation event. We went well below zero here last night. Our vehicles were covered in ice this morning, and what we had been seeing over the past about the past week is that whenever it was very, very cold, all these little ones huddle underneath the mom, but as they're getting larger and larger and larger, there's actually less and less space for them to be sitting under the mother. Got a slender mongoose here on the right, guys. We've got a slender mongoose that's coming in. Angie has asked if this water level is higher than previous years. No, this is actually dropping quickly. This is just rainwater. This is all going to be gone probably in the next 3 months. There's a little slender mongoose. Now, this little guy will absolutely predate on one of these chicks, one of these ducklings. If he gets half a chance, he will grab one of those ducklings. There is no question about it. And their classic mongoose behavior, you see that similarity to the meerkats and yellow mongoose that's standing upright to get a better view. So these little ducklings have got a long way to go. I'm very, very sad that we've already lost two, but it is perfectly normal to lose 50% of a group like this. Although, that being said, the survival rate of shell ducks seems to be a lot higher than many other species, and you can have a 70% survival rate. So we're actually on that mark now, between 6 and 7 out of the 9. I would be quite happy to say, okay, hopefully now they should be okay. I'm going to take a flying guess and I think we're going to lose one more chick before the whole thing's settled. But I don't want to jinx it just yet. But it's still so exciting to be able to follow these little ducklings from the time they've emerged from the burrow and arrived at the dam about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. Yeah, give or take, to now. Very, very observant, Luke. Luke has said the ducklings are getting so big. Absolutely, they're growing so fast. I mean, and that I think may have been what the problem was last night or over the past couple of days with the super, super cold weather that we had in the evenings, is that there's not enough space under that mother for them all to huddle there. I don't know. That's an absolute thumbsuck. I've got nothing to base it on, because there were only 9 chicks here. They can have up to 16 ducklings at a time, and there's enough space for all of them. So I don't think that was a problem, but the fact that we found one lying on the edge of the water this morning, very fresh, it seemed to have died last night. I'm pretty certain that was exposure that it succumbed to. But yeah, so we're actually sitting in this little hollow again. Those of you who haven't noticed it, we're actually sitting in our little blind at the water again. And yeah, so we're not driving around this afternoon. We're just going to stick it out and hopefully we'll get some. We've already got some kudu. There's a kudu that's coming down there. We've got the ducks. There's lots of bird life. There's a mongoose. So I think we're on the money here this afternoon. And it's just exciting, even if we don't see anything what people traditionally want to see, And happy World Lion Day, by the way. For those of our colleagues that are looking for lions, I hope they find them. Good luck. Look, happy Lion Prey Day today. Beautiful afternoon. So just out of interest, that thing that looks like a sarcophagus in the middle of the water over there, that's actually a crib. That's where the water supply actually comes in. So what we're seeing here is mostly rainwater, leading on from Luke's question. This is mostly rainwater over here, but we've got a solar panel that trickles water into that cement crib over there, and then the overflow goes into the dam. And we were having a good chuckle earlier. We actually had a gemsbuck bull that walked through the water to go to that crib and actually drank the very, very clean water at that crib. So it's just interesting to see how some animals do that. We know elephants do that a lot, like they like drinking clean water. I haven't seen elephants here yet, though. If you spot one somewhere in the background, let me know. Guess what a magnificent kudu bull, eh? With that reflection. Beautiful animals. There was reports of a number of spotted hyena around this area this morning. So I'm actually, one reason why I'm sitting is I'm actually hoping that we'll get something like spotties arriving at the water later. It'll be a long shot, but you never know.
Right, so what I've done is I've come up a tree here to see if this can give me some vantage so that I might see the hounds that I seek. Unfortunately, I see nothing except the beautiful views offered by the lowveld. Now, what I'm standing in here is a marula tree, and the marula tree, I'm sure you've been told about many times, but it always grows on sandy soils, normally on ridge crest areas, and that means that they grow in the areas that are quite high up. And because the lowveld, which is where we are now, is quite flat and is only about 400 meters above sea level, climbing a tree like this gives us the chance to see actually really quite far, especially in winter when the vegetation is pretty sparse. But unfortunately, this particular tree climbing exercise has not managed to net me a sight of a wild dog. The other thing to tell you about, especially at this time, is the bark. Now, this particular bark peels off quite quickly and quite easily. And if you look down on the trunk there in front of the car, can you see that? Where it's been scraped there, Theo? Can you see it? Right, so where that's been scraped, that's an elephant that's done that. And this tree's entire existence is, I suppose, entwined with the existence of elephants. Elephants love the fruit, elephants love the bark, elephants love the leaves. And so what the tree has done over evolutionary time is try desperately to avoid damage by elephants. The fruits drop to the ground and ripen on the ground, so elephants never have to pick the fruits from the tree. And then the bark comes off in these flakes, which means that although elephants do ring bark these trees sometimes, it offers some sort of protection against ring barking. And ring barking is when an animal takes a concentric ring of bark off the trunk of a tree, and that will cause it to die. So something like a knobthorn tree doesn't have this sort of bark, and lots of knobthorns get ring-barked, and elephants tear great big strips of bark off them. Okay, I'm now going to try and climb out of this tree and not kill myself.
So we have left the other watering hole with the lions and then made our way over to a smaller watering hole where we came upon this very exciting event. And it looks like there's a young elephant enjoying himself in the water, cooling down, but also struggling to get out. You can see the larger ones are casually drinking. For the little one, it's a very, very eventful event. Possibility of meeting other elephants at the watering hole's edge, which has actually happened. There's an elephant that looked like it might not have been part of this herd that came over. If you look right behind that large part of the elephant herd, there's an embankment there. And it came over from that side. There was lots of noise, lots of excitement, and then the large elephant on the right hand side of this group pushed that elephant to move off. You can see all of them are huddled together, and in the middle of them, if you look very carefully, there's a number of young elephants. Now you'll notice they're also throwing some mud on them to cool down. So what we're witnessing here is a afternoon bathing session. Although there was a cool wind blowing today, the sun was quite harsh and it was quite warm. So after spending all day feeding in the shade around the dry riverbeds nearby, these elephants have made their way over to the water. And you can see the larger elephants, like that female over there with a young one, they look quite reserved. They don't seem to be quite as excited as the young one we saw a couple of minutes ago. But I think it's also because they know the deal. Fiona, that is an interesting question. And whether the young elephants will get run over by the larger elephants, it depends on the situation, I'd say. I have seen in the past where the pressure for water is immense and there's very, very little water left. If you look at this watering hole, you can see it's almost dried out as well, and I don't think it's got long. But sometimes this might be the only water in a very large area, and then lots of herds of elephants come down, sometimes at the same time. And in that case, with different herds and the confusion and big males also gathering in the area, then there is a risk for little ones to get run over or even get in danger, especially once they move into the water. In this case, this water is quite shallow, so I don't think they really have in this particular area. You can see those larger elephants are standing close by, almost encircling the younger ones. And they'll definitely lend a helping hand as soon as they see one of the younger ones is struggling severely. But you can see they're really digging into that mud pool there and utilizing it to its full potential.
Those of you might have missed it when we got those shell ducks, these little ducklings coming down to the water for the first time. We actually, I think a day or two later, we actually worked out just how fast it took them to get to the water. Because the adults left, we were here, we filmed them leaving, and then David got them arriving back with the chicks. So the nest was exactly 800 meters away from this dam, literally to the meter, to the center of the dam, to where the nest was 800 meters. And we actually worked out that they were walking at, you can work out at 4.75 minutes per 100 meters, or 35 centimeters per second is what they were cruising at. That's what those little ducklings were going on there. Now that's probably not wholly accurate because that's working on a straight line distance. So they were actually probably walking a little bit faster than that, because we've got the exact timestamps of when the adults left, and we said, okay, it probably takes 40 seconds, 50 seconds for them to fly up to the nest, and then we got the timestamp when they came back. Pretty cool. Emily has asked a good question. How do ducks, geese, and often other birds, and I can think of examples like flamingos, stand on one leg? Well, I think they just balance well, and it's because, it's like, it would be the same as, well, how does a human stand on one leg? If you're used to it, you can do it. It's quite interesting, though, how do they sleep on one leg? In other words, if you a person is conscious and you can make a decision, okay, I'm going to balance on one leg, and some people are really good at it, others like myself are totally useless at it. I can barely walk upright. But and then you get a duck or a flamingo that'll actually put its head and tuck its head next to its wing and just go to sleep on one leg. Now I find that pretty cool. How they do that, I'm not entirely sure. And also, the thing that interests me there is the evolutionary side of it. Well, why stand on one leg as opposed to one just not stand on two legs? Perhaps it's a heat thing, but then they do it through summer and winter anyway, so I don't think it'll be a heat-related thing, but it could be. But why stand on one leg? What are you worried about? A foot getting tickled or so? I don't know, but it's a good question.
Welcome back to And Beyond Pinde, everyone. Remember at the start of Drive, I said that we were going to try and find some rhinos for you, and have a look at this. Just in front of us here, a beautiful white rhino cow, silhouetted against the sky. And when we arrived, we saw that she had with her quite a small calf. And I'm hoping that if we sit here and if we're patient, that we might get rewarded with a view of that little calf. Oh, there it is, coming to the left of the bush. Look at that. Look at how cute that little thing is. Oh, it looks like there's 3 rhinos. Listen to the sounds they're making, the hissing sound. So there's obviously Mom with her little one at the back there. But then look at this one that's closer to us, everybody. Look at how much smaller that rhino is than the big female at the back. It's obviously a sub-adult rhino. And more than likely, this female's previous calf that's still hanging around her and hasn't yet got the hint to move off. That's why it's keeping its distance. That might also be why it was making that noise. Kind of calling to its mother, just wanting to interact with her. And more than likely probably being rebuffed for that. But look at how cute that little calf is. with its tiny little horn. Striped horse, you're asking how fast a rhino can run. Striped horse for a white rhino, probably about 40 kilometers an hour, somewhere around there. So a little less than 30 miles per hour, which is plenty fast for an animal that size. And just like that lioness we saw earlier, listen to the breeze that's blowing through here, just keeping nice and cool up on the hillside here, busy grazing. And with this time of the day, with the sun slowly starting to set to the west of us, often rhinos at this time of year will go to drink. And perhaps that's where these rhinos are off to go look for some water.
I'm so glad you all spent time with us this afternoon to watch these little ducklings and the adults, because they are so fascinating. And I'll come back to the point I've made earlier. It is just always astounding how very often things that are so common we know so little about, and it's almost like you kind of like take it for granted. You see it all the time, so you kind of ignore it, kind of thing. And just these shell ducks are a really good example. 15 different water bird of duck species studying in South Africa. These are the second most common after Egyptian geese. Now, those South Africans out there, you will know how common Egyptian geese are. Dina has asked, is there a risk of these little ducklings being predated by birds of prey? Yes. Not so much out in this area, but in other areas where you get things like fish eagles would be big predators on these guys. But in this area, gabar, goshawks, not so much of a threat to them. So it'll be more land-based predators for these. But it's just such a privilege spending time with them at close quarters. Like so few people have ever observed shell ducks, South African shell ducks, like we are sitting observing them here. And all of you are with us on this adventure. I can't think of a better way to spend an afternoon. So those of you, please join us if you want to link in live later, but otherwise have an amazing afternoon, and thank you. Okay, I need 1 minute. Okay, actually 2 minutes, if you don't mind. While we're on the shell ducks, I think this is just focus on the shell ducks. I'm just going to talk. Okay, just appreciate this. This is a very special poem that has been sent to me by a lady called Miss Breitenbach. She has written this, and she asked my permission if she could use my name at one point in this. So I'm going to read it out. This is a tribute to the shell ducks generally, but in particular to the two missing shell ducks. Okay, that is Shedrick and Sherilyn that went missing over the course of last night. Please bear with me, I'll make it as quick and as painless as possible. This is called the Shelby Short Story. Okay, when Sheldon saw Shelley waddling along the shore, he was enchanted and thought to himself, I need to get to know this hen more. And when Shelley saw Sheldon, she knew it was right. This was true love, and it was love at first sight. Shall we? Sheldon asked Shelley. Yes, said she, under the shining camelthorn tree. And so they huffed and puffed until the sun went down. Lower and lower it set, while their two hearts met. Full of love and so content, they moved uphill to find a place to rent. Through the furrow and into a burrow, she waddled and wheezed and struggled and squeezed to lie and rest in a warm, hollow nest. Furnished with down, there was no warmer in town. She sat and pushed and panted and squeezed, and when she saw what lay there, She was utterly pleased. Later that day, when Sheldon came home, Shelley told him, "Our family has grown." In disbelief, she stood up and showed him the 9 perfect eggs that love had bestowed them. 9 little eggs, so special and round, were henceforth hidden safely deep underground. Shelley stayed with them, sitting and warming, for 30 days while the chicks were forming, until at last, crack, splatter, spat, the eggs began to hatch. Shelley and Sheldon couldn't have been prouder as the chirps and cheeps became louder and louder. One after the other they chirped, "Hi father, hi mother, I'm Sharon, I'm Sherlock, I'm Shirley, I'm Sheffield, I'm Sheila, I'm Shedrick, I'm Sherry, I'm Sherwood, I'm Sherilyn." Spreading their bronzed wings around their babies, they cooed, "Welcome to this world, our precious little Shelbies." Sheldon remarked, "It's time to go. Tswalu is big, and there's so much to show." And so, forming a line of sons and daughters, they embarked on the journey towards the waters. Shuffling and shunting, groaning and grunting, they kept their eyes open for predators hunting. Simultaneously, at a dam, there was a man who had no idea he was about to meet these 18 tiny little webbed feet. "Surely the Shelbies shall be seen," he kept saying every morning on the wild earth screen. When they waddled by on that day in late July, he thought he's in heaven as he counted 11. Arriving at the dam, they weren't on live cam, so expressed the need to get the live feed. David nailed it while sitting there grinning, filming the ducklings dabbling and swimming. Floating about, they heard someone shout, "I'm so excited, I'm so delighted." Sherlock asked, "Mom, is that a villain?" "No," Shelley answered, "that's your godfather, Dylan." The end. That's a tribute to Shedrick and Sherilyn, everyone. There's the shell duck story. Awesome. Thank you for that. Yeah, that's the shell ducks. We're going to keep following these guys for the next, well, until they fledge and they are gone. It's just the best.
My goodness me, what a poem that was. We've slightly just repositioned a little bit to try and get a better view of these rhinos. And have a look at that little calf, everybody. Look at how adorable it is. It's laying down. It's lying on its side, with Mum standing over it, just to the left of it. No doubt it's been walking quite a bit today with its mother, with the bush being as dry as it is. I mean, just look at the grass all around there, and how kind of dry it is now at this time in winter. And so they're probably going to have to walk around quite a bit to find enough food to eat and enough water to drink. And so I'm sure that little calf has covered a lot of ground already with its mother. And that's now why it's taking a bit of time to relax and rest. And just see its little ears flickering every now and then. Just minimum movement. And while we've been sitting here, we've actually been able to see a couple more white rhinos in the bushes around us. So there's obviously quite a few rhinos in this area, and perhaps, like I said, with the bush being dry and this time of year being in winter, when often the grasses are not as nutritious as they are in summertime, and the grazing animals will move around looking for the best available food, and so this must be a particularly good patch of grazing here. Have a look just to the left of this rhino cow. Look at all the big green guarri bushes, and we've spoken about this quite often, how thickets can often kind of shelter the grasses a little bit, maybe even trap a bit of moisture, a bit of morning dew in the morning, and just to help the grass grow a little bit better or keep it nutritious for longer. And that's maybe why these rhinos have been attracted to this particular area. Ian, you're asking if rhinos get affected by the dust. Yeah, not so much, no. They'll, in fact, often kind of roll around in mud and on the ground and stuff. So no, dust is not a big deal for them. Although I imagine with nostrils the size of their nostrils, sure, it must be quite uncomfortable, quite unpleasant to get all that dust into their nostrils. And sometimes, especially on a windy day when there's dust blowing around, you often see rhinos with their noses almost watering. trying to flush all of that dust out of their noses. Even now, look at that rhino on the far right, everybody. Now that it's lifted its head a little bit. Oh, as I said that, it puts its head back down. But if he lifts his head again, let's have a look. Oh, you guys can use the zoom of the camera, and I'll use my binoculars, see if we can see if there is much dust around those nostrils. But while his head is down, have a look on his back, everyone. I've just seen now using my binoculars. Can you see all those black speckles there on his flanks? Just beneath the saddle of his back. It's all those little black spots. And those are flies, everybody. Oh, there we go. He's just lifted his nostril. If you look or his nose rather. Look very carefully. You can see lots of water that's kind of dripping out of his nostrils, helping to keep them clean of any debris like that dust.
This is a very beautiful dove because of its emerald-coloured feathers. It is the emerald spotted wood dove. Very beautiful indeed. My name is James Henry. We've got Theo on camera. Let us go back to our beautiful bird. Lovely to have you all with us. You may talk to us, of course, should the fancy take you. I think Dylan's probably told you that, but I'll tell you again, using the hashtag WildEarth on the tweet or the chat streams on YouTube and Twitch. Or kidsquestions@wildearth.tv if you happen to be a kid. Isn't that pretty? And it's enjoying a bit of a dust bath, looking for a few seeds. Unfortunately, our wild dog search has come to naught at this stage, but we'll keep looking around. Indeed, Elizabeth, yes, I think one of our most beautiful doves out here. Doves are, I suppose, a little bit like francolins. They are deceptively good looking. And I'll show you some pictures of some very pretty ones. So there are the sort of blandish, bog average mourning dove, red-eyed dove, Cape turtle dove, all got beautiful calls. And then we get into the pretty ones. There is the Namakwa dove there, and that's got little sort of purple spots in the same place that the emerald spotted's got emerald spots. And then these magnificent things, the tambourine dove, the African green pigeon, all from the same family, the cinnamon dove with its lovely little bits of green there, and the rock or speckled pigeon. I think they're very, very delightful looking creatures. And then this very unusual fellow, the blue spotted wood dove, which is of course distinct from the emerald spotted wood dove. Oh yes, Fern, birds in the wild absolutely molt. Definitely, they lose their feathers and grow new ones, and in fact, quite often you can see raptors. If you watch a raptor flying overhead, you'll see that they're missing feathers on their wings, and it's normally the feathers on either side in exactly the same place, so that the bird is not unbalanced when it flies. And they'll lose one sort of flight feather at a time, regrow them, and that's how they keep all of the feathers in a state of flight readiness, I suppose you could say. It's most obvious on the raptors when they're flying overhead. You can often see gaps in the wings. English, Krishna, is the answer to that question. The difference between a dove and a pigeon is simply English. They belong to the same family. Pigeons are normally bigger, but I don't think that there's anything else really to be said other than that they're bigger. So let's look at them all again. I've now lost my place as to where they were, and my small brain has forgotten which page number. There they are. So if we go back here, the distinction, I'll just read it, between pigeons and doves is ill-defined. So as I said, larger species tend to be called pigeons, smaller ones doves. So the pigeons in South Africa are the eastern or Delagogue's pigeon, and then the African green pigeon, and they're just big. I mean, those are two big birds. And then the rock pigeon's also huge, and my personal favorite is this chap here, the Ramaron or African olive pigeon. They're gorgeous. And just quickly, while I've got you on the book here, people are often asking about different calomorphs of animals, and it's nowhere better illustrated than with the feral pigeon, where you get the red morph, rufous morph, you get a kind of, it's not a semi, it's a semi-dark morph, you get a fully melanistic morph, and you get a leucistic morph as well. So there's all the different colours, and a lot of birds will have almost identical colour ranges for their species. But with the feral or rock pigeon, it's that much more obvious. Right, let us move along from here and see what else comes our way. Hopefully some hounds as the day's shadows lengthen.
So we're just having a look at the tree on the far bank is called the buffalo thorn. That hardly any leaves on it, just with the dead branches sticking in the water. But all those little yellow birds and the other couple of nondescript looking ones are yellow canaries. And birds really enjoy when they're coming down to open bodies of water like this, if they can get access to a thicket very close to or on the edge of the water. They prefer doing that rather than just landing out in the open. There are different groups of birds that exhibit different kind of behaviors like that. So again, you can't just like lump everything into one thing and so that's what all birds do, because doves don't like doing that. Doves like landing in a very open area, getting in, drinking as quickly as possible, and then moving out. Whereas these little passerines, the small little perching birds, they want to get into these thickets because they know if any danger threatens, whether it's land-based like a slender mongoose or aerial-based like a gabar goshawk, they can just dash into cover super, super, super fast. But I can spend hours I can spend a whole day at a waterhole. I can spend weeks at a waterhole if I have to. We're going to pan across the left. Look at this gemsbuck with one of the shell ducks. How sweet is that? That gemsbuck is walking along and there's a little chick in front of it now. And that gemsbuck is actually looking at that shell. It's like, well, what are you doing in the water there? Oh man, what a beautiful afternoon. So this is one of these really specially adapted antelope for these arid areas. And Tswalu is actually not even regarded as an arid area. It's regarded as a semi-arid area. We're actually getting enough rain to be classed as semi-arid as opposed to arid. But these antelope are incredibly tough, and they can persist in areas where there is no surface water for most of the year. But as many of these things will do, they'll actually drink when it's available. There's another big bull that's coming in from the right-hand side now. Oh man, this is gorgeous. These reflections, this wind has settled so nicely compared to this morning. Toby has asked, and it's an interesting question there. Toby has asked, would a gemsbuck eat a shell duck? Okay, no, it won't. It's very unlikely. But why I think it's a really interesting question. If you have a look at what I've got over here, somewhere here, I have got it, I promise you. Just give me some time, I'll get it out. I've got it here, here we go. Look what I've got over here. Okay, and this is why, Toby, for those of you who want to think it's a silly question, it's not a silly question, it's a very good question, Toby. This is the skull of a grey duiker. Okay, I have no idea how it got killed, but you get a lot of animals that exhibit what they call osteophagy, which means bone eating, or they'll eat bones, they'll actually pick them up and they'll chew on them for calcium. And there are records of this species of antelope, a grey duiker, actually catching birds. It would be very, very rare, very uncommon, but that has been recorded. And they'll even go for nestlings. So, good question. You know, you typically wouldn't think of an antelope going and eating a bird, but it has been recorded. Very, very rare, but it has been recorded. So, yeah, it's head. Some people might wonder, well, this head is so little, how does it have any brains in there? Well, I know people with big heads with little brains as well, so the knife cuts both ways, folks. We all know this. It's a universal truth. Oh, I'm loving those reflections on these oryx. What a magnificent afternoon. And there's even zebra. There's even mountain zebra here. Do you want to try to get them, David? Here's a challenge for David. Guys, look at that flat, straight above that starling on that flat part of the mountain, right on the very top. Okay, have a look at this, guys. So that gives you some. That's about 1.2, 1.3 kilometers away from where we're sitting there. It's not going to be an award-winning shot, so don't hold your breath, but there's a zebra. In fact, there's a couple of zebra sitting up there. I think they're actually more to your left. Yeah, they're more to the left, and they go, yeah, you go in the center there now, straight up there. There we go, on the top, right on the very top. Just a little bit to the left, it's like top left there. They go in, straight in the middle now. There. Yeah. There we go. so that's just absolutely out of fun, because it just shows, as we're sitting in this hole, you know, just scanning around, you can actually see all sorts of things. Yeah, we found Wally. Oh my word, it's a beautiful afternoon, and I'm so glad you're all there to share it with us. Yeah, zebra. There's a lot to learn about zebra. Maybe tonight some of you can actually sit down and open a book and learn about zebra. So these are Hartmann's mountain zebra. We actually have both species, or two. I don't want to say both. We have two species on Tswalu. Oh, what is my favorite fact about zebras? Okay, well, I won't even go on a favorite fact about zebra. I'll just talk about the two different kinds that we have on Tswalu, and there's a couple of key differences there. This species that we're looking at there, this is a Hartmann's mountain zebra, and their stronghold is actually in Namibia. And they are regarded as a threatened species. So we had a question earlier this morning about, endangered species. This is regarded as threatened. But then the other species that we get to, the Birchall zebra, which is also called a plains zebra, that is a pretty common species across many reserves in South Africa, and we got them on Tswalu. But our core focus in terms of one of our conservation objectives here are these ones, these Hartmann's mountain zebra. And their hooves are markedly smaller than a Birchall zebra. A Birchall zebra, imagine a kind of an average size horse. Those of you who enjoy horse riding, whereas these little guys, they're almost like pony size hooves, but they're actually the same weight, sometimes even heavier. The big stallions, even heavier than a Birchall zebra stallion, and yet they go up and down these hills like it's incredible to watch them. Look at these gemsbuck. Remember we were talking about the gemsbuck walking through the water, or actually walking through the dam to get the clean water out the crib? Look at that. It's like there's one drinking on the bank. There's the other one that's actually said, no, I actually want the clean one. This one says he wants the single malt water, not the blend.
There we have got a group of what I think are serrated hinged terrapins. And they are all basking in the sun and very cleverly have got themselves on the northwestern side of a tree, which means that they are avoiding this rather unpleasant, cold southeast wind. Very clever of them. Now, in theory, the reason I say it's in theory, that these should be serrated hinged terrapins because they are the ones who are in the larger water bodies, often seen basking, and that's what we should have there. But you can tell the difference between a serrated hinged terrapin and a marsh terrapin by the serrations. So if we zoom in as far as you can, here, you see, I am not convinced. Well, the one on the far left is very large, but he doesn't appear to have too many serrations on his carapace, nor in fact do many of the others. The marsh terrapin should be a bit smaller as well. I think a lot of the time we get these things confused. So the marsh terrapin is supposed to live in drying pans, digs into soil to await rains, but it will also live in pans, flares and slow-moving rivers. Well, Moonbeam, yes, it is a herd of turtles. Strictly speaking, terrapins, but yes, you are correct. I think those are marsh terrapins. I don't think they're serrated hinged terrapins because they don't have any serrations on their backs. I don't think we examine them closely enough to know quite often. Just check the size. 20 to 30 centimeters at maximum, and the serrated hinged is up to 45 centimeters. And I think the biggest ones there are about a foot long. That's 30 centimeters. I just don't see sufficient serrations there. But I could be talking garbage. Hello, Zakes and Corsi. Remember, these are not turtles. You can use the term turtle, but if you're referring to turtles, you're referring to sea turtles, tortoises, and terrapins. And so it's best to call these things terrapins. These ones, if they are marsh terrapins, which I think they are, is basically what they'll eat is anything that they are able to catch. And that might include small birds, it might include lots of insects, frogs, and so, sometimes they're like little crocodiles. They'll wait for birds to come down to drink and then grab them. Anything they can overpower. Oh, it looks so nice and warm there and sheltered, doesn't it? Like a little pool party without the gin and tonic. Joy, you're wondering about Gregory. Everybody, we had a tortoise that lived in camp called Gregory. Gregory subsequently turned out to be Gregorina, a lady tortoise. And she was a Speaks Hinge tortoise. I say was because I haven't seen her for a long time. And I don't know, Joy, if she's still around the camp. She'd be in East Ovation right now, so we wouldn't expect to see her until the rain came out. But somebody put a drop of red nail polish on the back of her carapace. And that allows us to identify her when she comes into camp, if she comes into camp. We'll sit here for a little bit longer and then I think we'll continue on our way.
Look at this really, really handsome crowned lapwing. The light is just perfect. It's illuminating all of its different colors, and you can see why it's called a crown lapwing. Lapwing. It's just spectacular. Well, it's sitting very close to its nest, or standing very close to its nest. The nest that we've been watching over the last 2 weeks or so since we first put it. And it must not be long now until it hatches again. One hatch. I thought Claire was going to try to this whole camouflage. But yes, there's the eggies still hanging out there with us. Haven't really moved much. They shift around every now and again when the lapwing comes to keep them cozy. Still very well camouflaged. No signs of danger. Everything is happy days. So there should be about a month incubation on these things. So hopefully they'll hatch sometime soon. Oh, wouldn't it be amazing to catch that hatching live camera? That would be spectacular. I wonder if it's ever been seen before. Well, you're going to sit here and just watch this lapwing a little longer.
Was it not yesterday? Oh, it was yesterday. Oh, you're right. So I'm just wondering about all these doves coming down. So all the ones that we're seeing here are Cape turtle doves at the moment. But what has been remarkable this afternoon is the number of laughing doves that have been coming down to drink, which I haven't seen. It's a very common species here. And, you know, the numbers fluctuate through the year. But I haven't seen the numbers over the past couple of weeks that we've been seeing this afternoon so far. And that being said, there's like Murphy, they're like creeping in. It's like that being said, the ones that I can see now are all Cape turtle doves. But it's just interesting to note, you know, all these little variations on the ecology in the area. You know, what triggers birds to be in an area at a certain time, what triggers them to move out of an area. Yes, that could be little niches in terms of feeding, what they require. It could be a temperature niche. It could be a nesting thing, that there's something slightly different in their nesting habits, where they are, which means that they come down to the water at different times to when we're here. That's just a casual observation. Got a lot of gemsbuck that have been moving down now from the left-hand side of the waterhole. Tammy has asked, what call does this dove make? It goes, which goes, work harder, or drink lager. But that is the call that it makes. Cape turtle dove. It's also called, there's a shelduck bathing. Look, how much bathing do you need when you've spent your entire day in the shower, pretty much? It's like, all right, let me just wash to make sure I'm clean from all that washing. Yeah, there we go. Look at that. But actually, that maintenance, because when they are going out, that's proper bathing. When they're floating around, they're actually not washing whatsoever. And you can see how shallow that water is. This water is, those of you who had been with us from the start, you'd remember that crib was barely sticking out the water. So that's dropped probably half a foot at least over the past couple of weeks. And this is at the time when our evaporation rate is at the absolute lowest through the year. Our peak evaporation rate here is when you're hitting early November, you haven't had any rains yet, and the temperatures are skyrocketing out here. Then you can have incredibly high evaporation rates. Oh man, these little ducklings are just the cutest things on the planet. And it's probably too soft for the mic, but they actually make this beautiful splashing sound when they dive down. Yes, that is gorgeous. That is Absolutely adorable. Hey. So they have to, just, I always think it's remarkable that these species that live in these, yeah. Miss Jen has asked, do they hold their breath when they stick their heads underwater? I would guess so. But they also, they're also underwater. I mean, you'd have to hold your breath, otherwise you'd be breathing underwater, which is going to be a little bit challenging, unless you've got gills. But they would have to hold it for such a brief period of time. And there are other birds that can spend a lot more time underwater. One of the very remarkable ones that I really enjoy, and I've only seen a handful of them, and definitely not at Tswalu, are dippers. And you get American dippers, and you get ones in Europe, and they've got this. They just run around foraging on rocks under the water, and I just love those birds. They're crazy cool. But these little guys, when they're dabbling like this, they're probably not going to be holding their breath for any substantial period of time. And in fact, when they mate, they sometimes mate on the water, and when they're mating, the male actually pushes the female's head underwater. I don't think it's deliberate. I think it's just like, yeah, that's just out of interest. Do not try that at home, folks. Or try it at home. Oh, this is beautiful. What an afternoon, eh? It's so good to be out here. I missed you all yesterday after my solitary confinement. Sassy Kathy has asked a fun one. Do shell ducks only live in Africa? No. Okay, this species, yes, but you actually get one called oh my goodness, rusty shell duck? No, come on, man, I can't believe I've forgotten this. It's an easy one. Anyway, you get shell ducks in Asia as well. Oh, I can't believe I've forgotten this name. Help me out, viewers, please help me out. It's a ruddy shell duck. A ruddy shell duck. A rusty, I was the rusty one, not the shell duck. Yeah, it's called a ruddy shell duck. And they are in Asia. But they're beautiful birds, man. All ducks are pretty. All birds are pretty. All nature's pretty, actually. Except maybe a tapeworm. Unless you're another tapeworm.
There's a fall coming. Hello and welcome back to Ambient Pinda, everyone. We have left those rhinos. They disappeared off into some dense quarry thickets. So we've continued driving through the open plains here, and we've managed to find a beautiful herd of wildebeest and zebra, all grazing together. The zebra now arriving from the right. Look at that. See that 1 second from the back there? Look how much smaller it is. So a sub-adult sticking close to its mother. Oh, that one defecating. Look at how spread out this herd is here in front of us. These wildebeest and these zebra. And they've all got their heads down, all busy feeding. The zebra all moving in single file. Karishma, you're asking at what time of year the wildebeest migration will begin. Karishma, I'm assuming you mean the one that's up in East Africa. Karishma, up there in the Masai Mara and the Serengeti, the migration is pretty much going on all year round. It just depends in which direction it's going. So at this time of year, Karishma, those wildebeest would be in the Masai Mara, and they'll be there for for the next couple of months, if I'm not mistaken. But it's ongoing. It's like a big cycle. The wildebeest move in a big circle down here in this part of the world, records suggest that there used to be massive wildebeest migrations across South Africa. Unfortunately, though, with development that's taken place and with the extermination of wildlife that happened particularly in this area in the early 1900s, those kind of mass movements don't happen anymore, unfortunately. Oh, but it's good to see such a big group of wildebeest all out here grazing together. Look at in the middle here, everybody. Look at how there's a group of, I don't know if you can see in the middle there's a couple of wildebeest. Look at how short those ones' horns are. So those would have been the young of last year, the calves that were born in kind of November, December of last year. And good to see that this particular herd had so many calves that were able to survive to this stage. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's at least 4 youngsters in this herd. And so the herd's increased in size quite dramatically just from this one birthing season. And of course the wildebeest, I'm looking at them now, they're quite a big animal, and it's mainly lions and perhaps hyenas, maybe even a coalition of big male cheetah that will hunt adult wildebeest. But when they're small, they're very vulnerable to all different kinds of predators. The aforementioned, but also female cheetah and leopards. And so for these youngsters to have made it this far, they've done pretty well. And the wind's slowly starting to die down. We're starting to hear some bird calls. You can hear some quail finches calling. Little grey birds that also feed on grass seeds. And they'll be hopping around in amongst the grass here while these wildebeest graze. But what a beautiful scene.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to my vehicle. We're just admiring this giraffe. Giraffes are everywhere right now, and this is a male who's very, very dark, lots of dark patches. I imagine from the sheer size of him that he's much older. And we've actually seen this one before because he's got a slightly squint ossicone. So my name is Lauren, and I do have Mark on camera with us today. And we actually stopped to admire some kudu first, but they've ran off because this morning, for those of you who missed it, we actually had a kudu kill with the wild dogs. It was a Pungwe pack. It's really my first time spending time with the Pungwe pack, which consists of 7 adults. The alpha female is collared, and there was originally 13 pups born not too long ago. Now, one pup sadly was taken by a Talamati lioness, and there should be 12, but we didn't manage to get a count this morning because it was very, very busy sighting. So unfortunately we didn't get a count of the pups, but hopefully there's still 12. And the sighting was called in with an impala kill, but when we got there it was a kudu. It wasn't quite a calf, definitely not a calf. We have a video of the actual kill taking place. And why do we have that video? Because it took place in our camp. Can you believe it? Our poor tech support ex got to see the whole thing happening next to his bedroom. So it was a kudu female. I'd say probably sub-adult from the looks of the video. And it happened very, very fast. Wild dogs kill quick. I'd love to know the number of giraffes on the property right now. I really would. I'd love to do an aerial survey. Mikey, you're asking how fast does a giraffe grow? I'm not entirely sure how to answer that. I would say very, very fast, as do most herbivores, because they are technically the prey species. They're not at the top of the food web, the food chain, and therefore most of them give birth to precocial young, which means that the young is very well developed and almost ready to stand on their own 2 feet from birth. Just like zebras, just like impala, they're ready to run as soon as they hit the ground running. And giraffes are not too far off that. They have a gestation period of 15 months, so 6 months longer than humans, and that ensures that their young is very well developed. I'm sure a giraffe calf can actually walk on his feet within 15 minutes and begin suckling within the first hour. So it's really remarkable. They grow very, very fast. They're born at around 100 kilograms, give or take, and it's remarkable how quickly they will not only put on weight, but they will also stretch nice and tall. The bigger they are, the sort of higher their chances of survival. A small calf is easy pickings for the predators out here. It would be no challenge whatsoever for a lion to take down a small giraffe calf. The females really only become sexually mature at 4 years if you're a giraffe. You've got to survive for 4 years before you're ready to mate. And the males, like this boy here, I think we should find a name for him with his little right squinty ossicone. The males take 7 years to become reproductively active. So they've got to survive to that age before they're ready. I wonder what's happened to his ossicone. Mark, yes they do. So we call them ossicones, and initially when a giraffe is first born, they're made from cartilage and they lie flat on the giraffe's head. They're not sticking upright, they're not erect, they lie flat completely against the giraffe's skull. And this is to ensure they don't damage the mother during the birthing process. And once the giraffe is born, slowly but surely they start to ossify, and the 2 ossicones will stand upright like this male here, and the cartilage will slowly turn to bone. So as you're looking at this boy, there's no cartilage there, it's fully bone. And basically the males use them for fighting, and it's called clubbing. And I find it personally really disturbing to watch giraffes battle it out, because what they do, I'm sure many of you have seen it, is swing their necks, or long powerful necks, and try to jab one another in the rib cage with their ossicones, and it can do great damage, and a lot of males die this way. So sort of sexual selection allows these ossicones to act as weapons for the males. Although giraffes appear very gentle, and they are, the males can really, really fight. They can fight to the death, and I just find it particularly sad to watch. But there's a hierarchy in male giraffes. They're not all dominant. They won't all battle. You have dominant giraffes, which tend to be darker, like this male here. If you look around his tummy area, you can see that it's very dark. The patches are really dark. And then you get males of the same age that will be very light, and they're said to be more submissive. When you actually look at a male's ossicone, you'll notice on the top he's often bald. And that's a great way to tell the difference between male and females from a distance if you can't do a genital check. And that's from clubbing. They use their ossicones so much that they tend to actually lose their hair on the top. And they're not territorial. So because they do have this hierarchy, the hierarchy is established through necking. Who's bigger, who's better? Necking, by swinging their necks and clubbing one another, is actually what establishes these bachelors on the hierarchy rank. I hope we get to see little giraffe calves around here soon. Max Shad, you're asking what's the lifespan? In the wild, giraffes can live up to 25 years old, which is quite long. And they're really the only ruminant that has a gestation period of more than 1 year. So that's 1 year into a female's life that she's pregnant for. And as I mentioned earlier, she will only become sort of reproductively active at 4 years old. Her first calf really will be around 5 years old. And then they can live up to 25 if there's no predators. So I think we're going
Wild Earth relies on support from viewers like you to carry on broadcasting our daily live shows. A small donation goes a long way in helping us on our mission to connect the world with nature. Please visit our support page to see how you can help and become part of the Wild Earth family.
So this incredibly handsome little bird, the Makwa dove, this is the male, long tail. When you're facing us, that's strikingly black chest with a... This is actually our smallest dove that we have. Not the total length. If you include the total length, it's kind of a little bit larger than some of the others. But certainly in total body size and mass, it's the smallest dove that we have out here. And again, a bird very, very typical of your arid areas. They're able to tolerate incredibly arid environments, way more so than many of the other dove species. We actually need to pop up in the next couple of days, go look at that turtle dove's nest with the chicks on it. We mustn't forget that, David. They will do that tomorrow sometime. Because it's still amazing that they pushed through on the nesting right through the season now. And you get that. You know, it's not that it's particularly unusual, it's just...
Here we have got some impalas. They're bottoms. Very nice bottoms, I think. Very nice and stripy. Nobody's come up with anything to do with those wild dogs, I'm afraid. So we're just going to have to hope that they pop out sometime during the evening as the shadows lengthen and they go on the hunt. Alternatively, they could have crossed out of the reserve and not let anyone know that they were leaving. Yoo. A lilac-breasted roller just dive-bombed a starling in the grass there. See the starling there? Yeah, well done. You got him. Not sure why the roller was being so unpleasant, but there it is. Birchall starling feeding, trying to find the last of the winter insects. Termites and ants mostly, I suspect, this time of the year. Not much else on offer. And a very silent afternoon. Just a few doves. And it seems to me that the more the wind blows, the more silent the animals tend to be. We also, Theo, believe it or not, have a very long-range visual of the backside of a wildebeest. It's a classic shot. I think you're going to be so overwhelmed with joy when you see it. Can you see them? Just go dead straight over the top of my finger. The other side of the drainage line. Oh no, sorry, and go to the right of it. Keep going right, there we go, zoom in there. Yo, what a sight, hey? Shoo! That was sighting of the afternoon, a 2-second long-range view of a wildebeest's backside. Glorious. Probably heading up towards the water to have an evening drink. Yeah. I can't believe how lucky we've been. Oh, my goodness. I am shocked to the point of not being jealous of not being in the Mara anymore. For we have our own wildebeest, 5 of them. Who needs the hundreds of thousands there are in the Mara when you have these 5 wandering north slowly? Long range. Well, fascinating as this is, I think we're going to continue down towards the waterhole in front of camp. See if we can have anything else spectacular at such close quarters.
So we've had a look, tried to see if we can find any signs of a leopard, and we had elephants at another watering hole, and now we're back at the watering hole where we started with the lions. And here we have another herd of elephants that's come down for their afternoon drink. Now that big elephant off to the left hand side of the group, just look at his movements. He looks like he's got a lot more time than the rest of this group. Now when we got here, he was already at the water's edge, and the rest of these elephants made their way down slowly. Usually once they get closer to the water, they start picking up the pace. More than likely because of excitement to have a drink after their long day of feeding away from water. If you look at that elephant bull, look, he's just standing with his trunk in the water. He's looking towards the others. His back legs look wet. There's a secretion coming from his temporal gland just behind the eye. You see that? Now this elephant, he's in mast, which is just a state that male elephants go in, where their testosterone levels reach very, very high peaks. And usually when they're in this state, they have one thing on their mind, and that is to look for females that might be in heat. And best place to look for females would be to come towards watering holes. You can see the rest of the elephants are spread out in a line all along the edge of the water. If I'm hearing it correctly, Bubbles, your question is how much water or how much liters can an elephant suck up in its trunk at once? Well, I guess it depends on the size of the elephant. For instance, one of those small babies in that herd, like that one in the middle now, will probably only be able to get a couple of liters if it is able to use its trunk already. Often young elephants only learn how to use their trunk properly between 6 months to a year of age. And before then they drink with their mouths directly in the water. A big one like that bull that we were looking at just now can probably suck up as much as around 10 to 15 liters at a time. And it looks like there's just more elephants coming to join. Yeah, quite a few. There's actually a massive herd of elephants. In fact, I think it might be more than one. Maybe a few different groups it was in the area. Some of them might be related, some of the older females in the group. Elephants, sometimes if the group becomes too big just to spread the resources better, like food and water in an area, they often split up into smaller groups. And then they only meet up occasionally around major watering holes. Pretty much like what we're seeing now at this point. And along the water's edge are small groups like this one. Like that female coming in now, she's got a little calf with her. It looks like she's lactating, so that's why I'm assuming the little one next to her is a calf. And the big bull, he's got his back towards us. Normally not part of this herd. And I don't even recall seeing this elephant in this region before. But when he's in the state that he is at the moment, he'll often travel very large distances to come to areas where there's a lot of females and have a higher chance of meeting a female that's in heat.
Myself and Craig are still sitting with this big group of zebra and wildebeest, everyone. And it looks like a few of the zebra have actually started to walk towards us. Look at these 4 here in front of us. Busy feeding on that long grass that's growing in the middle of the road, as well as that very long grass growing on the side of the road. It certainly doesn't look very tasty, does it? Look at how gold and brown it looks. Oh, and look at the zebra closest to us, everybody. Have a close look at its face. Just beneath its eye. I don't know if it's just me, but it looks like it's got a bit of a swelling there. And there's even a bit of a brown mark there as well. I wonder if it didn't maybe get kicked in the face. I don't know if any of you have ever seen zebras often when they fight, or if they get kind of a bit antsy with each other, especially when they're crowded around a water source. They'll often start to neck wrestle and bite each other and even kick each other sometimes. And I wonder if that's not what happened to this poor zebra. Oh, that must have been horrible if it was a kick to the face. Especially now when water is scarce and there's a bit of competition and a bit of jostling around the waterhole. It's when that kind of thing could have happened. Look at those two smelling each other. Cal, you're saying that this is a very big herd. Cal, it is indeed. Jeez, I don't know the last time that I saw this many wildebeest and this many zebra together. I mean, just in shot, there's at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, probably about 15 wildebeest that we can see. But there's even more down the hill and then even more in the bushes off to the left. And then zebra also, probably about 15 or 20 zebra just in this little vicinity. So of course, having all these animals being together, and all of their collective senses, all of their noses, all of their eyes, all of their ears, just means additional kind of bodies on the lookout for danger, additional senses on the lookout for danger, so safety in numbers. And then also, I think just also the fact that both of them, both these species, I'm sure many of you have heard about how zebra will often favor slightly longer grasses and wildebeest slightly shorter grasses. And sometimes the zebra can even facilitate the grazing for the wildebeest by cropping it down a little bit lower for the wildebeest to feed on. So many reasons why these animals will be together. But fascinating just to watch. Look at the zebra that's closest to us. Look at how it's using those lips and nibbling on that grass there. Sassy Cassie, you're asking if zebras can be domesticated. And Sassy Cassie, from what I've heard, no, they can't. They apparently have a bit of a, what horse breeders say or call a bit of a mean streak to them. They don't take to being told what to do or put in a harness or anything like that. They also haven't, of course, been selectively bred to have a strong back like a domestic horse does to carry a person. That being said, Sassy Cassie, there are some pretty interesting photographs in some historical books, and I'm sure you can find them online. But if you Google zebra-drawn carriages, I believe there was, well, I think in South Africa it happened a couple of times, and I think even in the UK many years ago, there was one particularly eccentric gentleman who had a carriage that was drawn by a small herd of zebra. I imagine that must have attracted quite a bit of attention on the streets. I don't know exactly where. I think it was in London, if I'm not mistaken. So imagine a horse-drawn carriage with a small herd of zebra pulling it down the streets of London. Must have attracted quite a bit of attention. A very peaceful scene here, everybody. Look at how the light is starting to go from that very harsh intensity from earlier to a bit of a more golden color. Jane, you say that you love seeing different species being together and coexisting peacefully. It is very special, Jane, and it gives us a window into, I suppose, what Africa must have been like many years ago before humans started to take over. And this kind of thing would have been common over many parts of Africa, or certainly many more places than it occurs in now. And just imagine in those days, this herd. We say now that there's maybe about 30 to 50 zebra and wildebeest collectively here together. Imagine back in the days gone by, how there could have been hundreds of zebra, hundreds of wildebeest congregating here on these plains, just like they still do today up in East Africa. Oh, look at these two zebra here in front of us. Let's see if this closer one rests his chin on the others. Oh, look at how they're grooming each other at the same time. Using those big teeth in the front of their mouths to comb through each other's coats. And doing it mutually, so they're cleaning each other at the same time. And of course that will help to not only keep them free of parasites, but even to strengthen their bonds within their little group. Just an absolutely beautiful scene. Myself and Craig are going to move out of this area shortly, everybody, to leave these wildebeest and zebra to continue with their grazing. And we're going to go back to that mountain to see if those lions have maybe come out with the setting of the sun.
We're still with this elephant bull. And he's just been moving slowly up and down, occasionally drinking a little bit, but it looks like he's squirting more of the water out than actually taking it in. He is drinking a little bit, but I saw him fidgeting with his tusk just now, and it looks like he's got his trunk right in there where the tusk comes out of the jaw. So I'm not entirely sure. It might be that maybe there's something he wants to wash out, or maybe he has a bit of a sore tooth. Occasionally under those folds right at the base of the tusks, and find that Elephants do occasionally develop abscesses. But he's also in a peculiar mood. Look at that. It looks like quite a muddy patch where he was drinking. And there's still more water coming out. I wonder whether that was just a little bit of mud he sucked up with the water and then squirted it out, or whether he's just trying to cleanse his mouth. Now, if he keeps moving in the direction he's moving, eventually he's gonna come across the pride of lions. You see, he stops every now and again and then just sniffs the ground. And there's a lot of elephants that's moved past this section of the watering hole today. I'm sure he's also seeing if he can pick up on any chemical signs that might have been left behind. But just look at all those elephants. If we continue to have a look at that. How amazing is that? Myself and Owen counted them earlier, and we have counted at least 45. Zorro baby, it is indeed a beautiful sighting. With that I agree. And there we have the lions. You can see they're all heads up now. This amount of elephants certainly even drew some reaction out of them. And you can see a little bit of local movement. Look at them, they're carefully watching that big elephant moving over towards their side. You can see that little one there has started putting her head down. Pretty sure the ears are going to go a little bit back not too long from now. And it looks like there's another herd following that big elephant straight towards them. So I'm sure they're carefully checking every move the elephants are making. And with the elephant's great sense of smell, they'll be able to pick up on the scent of these lions once they move past them very easily. And then this casual gathering will certainly be disturbed with a lot of noise and a lot of running in different directions. You can see one on the far right already starting to get ready in case it... Oh, no, head straight back down. And there we have the elephants. You can see that big bull just standing very, very still there. It almost looks like the rest of the elephants are waiting in line. What an amazing thing to see. It's almost as if we have a little bit of a standoff. But I guess with a standoff, both parties need to be aware of the other one. You can see now most of these elephants have had their drink. They're starting to get a little bit more playful. Some of the younger ones sizing each other up. can see some of the larger elephants are standing dead still. Nothing moving really. And I think that once some of these larger ones start moving, the young ones like that one will follow. I think they're just waiting for the young ones to have their fill, have a last minute of enjoyment in the cool water. Rattel, from what I've seen, elephants do mate year-round. It seems that at the beginning of the year, during our raining season, we often find more of the bull elephants or the large male elephants in must, and they seem to be moving through this area more regularly. But we do see them all year round, like this one at the moment. And although not all elephant babies are sired by elephant bulls in must, they are the most likely elephants to be able to mate with the females. Now you can see from how deep that elephant's feet is in the water, it's not very deep. And therefore it's coming straight across. I think it might have actually picked up on those lines. I'm going to move slightly further back, just in reposition so that we get another view. I think let's see what he does from here. I know he doesn't look too interested at this point, but I'm sure he's aware of them. He must have been able to see them from where he was. You can see him sniffing some elephant dung there. Often these bulls, when they come to the water's edge, they look specifically for that elephant dung. Even if it's old, they'll still be able to pick up any chemical traces that's been left. Maybe it might even be another bull that he knows of. It's moving in this area. But it should be interesting to see whether that elephant's going to come over to the lions or just move on.
We have managed to find ourselves a vulture, and I tell you what, on days like this I wish that I had eyes like a vulture has eyes, because we have not seen a massive amount. I think the animals have been put off by this chilly southeast breeze. Anyway, he's a very picturesque vulture, having a good look out towards the southeast. We're going to make our way up towards the central parts of Djuma again and see if we can't pick up the dogs coming out on the hunt. Lovely sound of the doves calling. I've never realized this before, but the dove calls in 6/8. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3. I think. I'm going to say that that particular shot, Theo, is unlikely to win you an award. I'm just going to put it out there. I am no judge of art, but I'm going to say that that one's not going to win you a prize. That one certainly is going to get you a lot closer to a prize than the dove shot. Now, the white-backed vulture is supposed to have just been breeding. And I suspect that this poor fellow is alone in the world. Maybe that's by choice. Maybe he's not poor in the slightest. But he may still find himself a partner at this late stage. They are winter breeders, which of course is not a common thing. And they're presumed to pair for life, and so the fact that he's on his own like this either means that he's been foraging. I use the pronoun he, it could easily be a she, and or it means that he or she is single. Yeah, June to September, so this chap still has a chance to find himself a friend. Oh yes, that's certainly a better dove shot. Better effort there, Theo, well done. Again, look, it's certainly, the first one was a 1 out of 10. I'd give you a 7 for that. That's not your fault, of course, it is where the bird has chosen to sit. Yes, Barbara, vultures are very interesting. I think that it's the same with just about any creature. The more you learn about it, the more interesting it becomes. And with vultures, they're not something that you learn about hugely as a child, or it's not something that I learned hugely about as a child, because unless you really get into ornithology and birding, it's always you'd learn snippets about more high-profile bird species, eagles and ducks as a group, or I don't know what else, hummingbirds maybe. But vultures, because of the way they look and their reputations, they're not something that fills storybooks, and so unless you, as a youngster, you make an effort to learn about them, you don't learn a great deal about them. And then when you do, as an adult, they are absolutely fascinating. Now this chap actually has got a very full crop. You see that big swelling in front of his chest. So he has eaten something. He's got quite a nice haircut. Sort of military buzz cut that's got a bit long. A bit of a punk vulture, actually. Wonder what he ate and who killed it, and if that individual is around here. The white-backed vulture has been recorded making their own kills, but I suspect he probably stole whatever he ate.
We have some wildebeest on the open clearing in Simbambili. We've headed west and the sun is starting to go down, so I am hoping for some of those sleepy cats to start to wake up. Now you may notice that we have wildebeest on quarantine here in Djuma Game Reserve as well, and that's because wildebeest generally tend to sort of set up their territories near water, very close to water, and we're not too far from Simbambili Dam here, and in a sandy open area. And why is that? Well, they use it as stomping grounds. And wildebeest love to stomp. They stomp their feet, and basically they have really, really special glands in their hooves. And these are actually known as the pedal glands. And these glands sort of leave scent on the sand that helps them mark their territories. And that's why they're always doing this funny stomping motion. But if they were to do that in the thicket, in this sort of really thick areas of vegetation, it wouldn't have the same effect. And that's exactly why wildebeest prefer these large open clearings. Maybe we can give you all a view of this clearing. It's far bigger than Quarantine, and it's really, really beautiful over in Simbambili. I think maybe triple the size of our Quarantine. Lots of termite mounds. But for the herbivores, it's very open. And it's very windy. It's been windy all day today. And that's why all these sort of diurnal herbivores will start to congregate or aggregate in the open areas. It's safer here. You may not be able to hear things very well because of the howling winds, but you can at least see. And there's lots of chances to escape. Whereas if you're in the thicket, you could easily dart off to escape and end up crashing into a tree. That would be rather unfortunate. So at least here, there's plenty of options for escape if you need to. There's a little youngster there off to the left. You can see the slight colour difference. Wildebeest calves are born really, really pale, a fawny colour. They almost look nothing like the adults. But then slowly as they start to grow, they change colour and they take on the appearance of the adult with that mane running down their neck onto their back. Hopefully we'll get more calves this winter. They have a fixed breeding season, which means they have a fixed birthing season, of course. Hopefully we'll get lots of little calves around. I have to say they are the cutest. This is normally around November, December. It can change by a week or two, give or take, due to the seasons and the environmental conditions. But hopefully we'll have little calves running around Quarantine. They brought us so much joy last year. Martin, you're asking, why do you hear Quarantine with animals? I'm not completely sure what you mean, but I'm referring to Quarantine as an area. It's an area right outside our camp, and it's a big open clearing that's just been given the name Quarantine. It has quite a history on Juma Game Reserve, where I believe they did used to keep animals in quarantine, hence the name. And it's just a very productive area in terms of vegetation, life, and herbivores, of course, which attracts the predators. So we have lots of fantastic sightings on Quarantine, and it just happens to be very, very beautiful. There's also a male leopard called Quarantine, which might make things slightly confusing, Martin. But he was born, guess where? Yes, shall I tell you? Quarantine was born on Quarantine. Yeah, and that's where he got his name from. So there's a male leopard called Quarantine. I've not had the pleasure of meeting him yet, but I hope to do so soon. And there's an area called Quarantine. So that's what it is we refer to when I'm talking about the open clearing. This is not Quarantine. I'm actually not sure what this clearing is called. Simbambili. If BK knows, hold on. Oh, Simbambili clearing. Thanks, BK. What would I do without you? So yes, Martin, I really hope that answers your question. They're fantastic areas to check, but it makes life difficult for the predators. If you see, the grass is really not that long, the vegetation's not that thick, it's very open. So predators like... Sorry, one more time, Londeka, you broke up there. So yes, predators like leopards who rely on stalking and ambush, element of surprise, they would really struggle here. There's not much area to sort of hide yourself. The prey would see you coming. Megan, you love wildebeest and their funny faces. Do Do you know, Megan, I know exactly what you're saying. They have unique expressions, shall we say. They do have entertaining faces. They're really, really wonderful animals. And they're also called gnu's, and that's because of the vocalization that they make. I'm sure I don't need to replicate it, you get the point. Or you can call them wildebeest. So I'm going to sit here for just a moment longer and admire the sunset.
So we've changed our position a little bit and we've moved closer to where these lions are laying down. And by the looks of it, most of them have gone back to sleeping. You can see one yawning here in the foreground. This one's been having his head up constantly the whole time these elephants were here. Most of the elephants have moved away from the water's edge and they're moving back in the direction that they came from. And that's what's got this one looking so intently. You can see he's just following every move they make. You can see those eyes carefully watching. Makes one wonder what it's thinking of at this point. And I've often wondered when, especially cats like lions, spending a lot of time in near watering hole during a day, where this pride has been, they've observed lots of animals coming down to come and have a drink, and most of those animals weren't even aware that they're here. And it must be incredible the knowledge that they have of the movements of other animals. You can see that white one up there. Let's see where he goes. He might be walking over. A little head rub. There we go. You can see some grooming going on there. On the hard to reach parts behind the ears, on the cheeks, the neck, the chest. Another little stretch from the female. So as they're doing this, now, even though they've spent the whole day in each other's company, they haven't really spent time together. They were mostly sleeping, minding their own business. And now, through that grooming, they strengthen the bond. The bond between this pride of lions is extremely important. When it gets dark tonight, and they're going to go and try and hunt, they need that effective teamwork. And teamwork is what's the lion's biggest success. I'm not sure where that female went at the back, but I do suspect that we might see her starting to move around, almost instinctively, trying to take the route around the watering hole. And that might be the first move to set up an ambush. Another little head rub there. So as the large lioness leaves, that young male pretty much just went straight in and took her position, but then that little one decided, no way, not going to spend the same amount of effort and care to groom that one. I can see more yawning going on. So the one yawns, the next one, and then the next one. And now the old lioness is up. Margaret, lions are incredibly beautiful creatures. When they're young, they are the most beautiful creatures I think there is. And when they're large, they're certainly one of the most impressive. See that old one limping off there in the front? That's one of the older lionesses, and I think we are going to see all of these lions get up pretty soon and move over that embankment. It's amazing to see how certain of the senior members, once they start getting going, and the rest knows it's time. Now I suspect the reason why they're walking that way around is because there's more cover on that side. So the wind direction was in their favor, but they were a bit out in the open. Ooh, I see one of the white ones is climbing up a tree there. Oh, and it just came down again. Now the young male's up as well. And probably going to be moving a little bit slower than the rest. Also time to relieve him. It's been a long day of laying down. And then the last one is just watching them all going over that little hill, and then I'm sure she's going to get up and follow. Once that happens, I think we're going to reposition and see where they go. So I think myself and Owen's going to sit here with these lions, see where they go, see what they do, and maybe we might follow them a little while.
Wild Earth relies on support from viewers like you to carry on broadcasting our daily live shows. A small donation goes a long way in helping us on our mission to connect the world with nature. Please visit our support page to see how you can help and become part of the Wild Earth family.
Myself and Craig have come back to that waterhole where that woolly-necked stork was earlier, everyone, and look at what we found. There's 2 elephant bulls that have come down to the waterhole. Look at that bull now in shot, with just that one tusk. Some of you may remember a couple of weeks ago Clive filming a bull with one tusk. I wonder if this is perhaps that same old elephant bull. That beautiful ivory gleaming there in the golden light. The sun has just started to set.
Bang. Look at this, everybody. We've got a live kill. The wild dogs have just grabbed a steenbok. I know this is difficult to watch, but that steenbok is dead. Please don't worry, it's all over. And I know that it's very difficult for some to watch this, and that the noise that it made was awful. but it died very quickly. All right, we can move a bit closer now, just so that you get a great view. And I imagine the puppies have been left somewhere, which is amazing news, because it probably means that they are going to den here for a little while. Unbelievable sounds. And we were so lucky. That poor little steenbok was not lucky at all. And that's how they kill. It's a chase, and then they tear the animal apart very quickly, and although it looks horrific, the death is pretty quick. I'm just going to try and call Aubrey, because I know he's been searching for them the whole afternoon. The station's located this pack of dogs on quarantine. Aubrey, come in. Alright, let's just drift a little bit closer here. One of them has gone running off towards the west, and I don't know if they've gone off to hunt further. No, that's where they've been. It's going to sneak forward here. It's gone running off down towards the west there, and what I suspect has happened is that they've kept the pups in that drainage line down there, in that gully. No, negative, but they're running off west towards the drainage line there, so I think that's where they are. Negative, they're running off towards the west. I think that's where the pups are. I'm going to follow them down there. Let's follow the guys down towards the west there, chaps, because I think that the chances of us seeing the puppies are high if we do that. So that the steenbok is now completely obliterated. Oh, let's have a look at this guy. He's just so close and so beautiful. Sorry, I'm just going to have to get on the radio again. Guys, I'm live. The dogs are on quarantine, mobile in a westerly direction. Yeah, FM? Oh, this is just wonderful. All right, I think let's leave these chaps that are feeding. We wouldn't normally, but they're all heading off down or towards the west. And I think we might be lucky to see the puppies, which are now just over a month old. Wow, that's an unbelievable sighting, everyone. Normally it happens behind a bush. As you came live, they grabbed the little steenbok, and shame. Not a nice way to go. Very quick and painless, pretty much. And the big thing that people say about wild dogs is that they're savage and they're cruel because they tear their prey apart like that. If you've ever watched lions hunting or killing a buffalo, you'll know that it's just not true. They do what they have to do, and it's over very fast for the prey, much faster than it is normally for, say, a buffalo being killed by lions. Okay, now I'm just going to get on the radio again. Stations I've left, 3 dogs on quarantine. I'm heading off towards the west to see if I can find the rest. I'm now off quarantine clearings, heading towards the big drainage line there. So they were heading straight down through here, and remember, once it gets dark, and it's nearly dark, we are not going to be able to follow them. They went straight through here. Let's just listen, because if they have found the pups, there'll be that twittering noise. Nothing yet. Did you hear anything at all? Let's just go around here. There's a hole in this termite mound, but it's not big enough, I don't think, to house some wild dog puppies. No, we're not going to be able to get down here. Just going to listen again, and then we're probably going to have to go around there. There they are. They're running down towards the west there. Aubrey, come on Zoe's road. They're heading that way. Covey, come onto the link road that goes to quarantine. All right, everybody, I think this is going to be a little bit hairy for us, so I think you go off somewhere else, not sure where, and I will try and find them again.
So we've followed these lions who have moved the grand total of about 30 meters just over the hill to the nearby water, where most of them have had their drink. And what we're looking at now is all the young ones patiently waiting to see what are the moves of the older lionesses going to be. The young males right at the back of the group, you can see over there, that's the older lionesses. And they've already started moving into somewhat of a cover. Looks like that the lioness is trying to hide behind that stump. You can see they got all angles covered at this point. Actually one drinking at the moment from a small little puddle. It looks like it's almost sucking up the mud. That water can't be very tasty. But I've often watched them. They don't often drink long. Sometimes it's just a quick wetting of the tongue or wetting of the mouth, and then they stop. Now at the moment, this time of the year, we find that these lions' movements are often determined by the areas that holds a lot of water. But what I've found is it seems like it's not so much for them to drink as it is for the animals that move there that they hunt. I've noticed that sometimes they can go without water for quite a while. And they also seem to be getting quite a bit of moisture from the animals that they eat. With lions, when watching them, like in this case, one needs to have quite a bit of patience. Rosemary, I'm very glad to hear it's your favorite beautiful pride. They are indeed beautiful, and They certainly are my favorite pride as well. Now, normally we'd see lots of different prides moving in and out of Ngala, specifically this time of the year when there's pressure for water and prey species, and they come from far often, especially in this region where we are now. This watering hole itself is often the grounds where territories overlap, where encounters happen with unknown prides. It should be interesting to see what their next move is going to be. I think they're slowly going to keep moving up in that direction where the older lionesses are laying down at the moment.
From one lion pride to another, we've come back to that big rocky mountain, and as we said earlier, this was our plan, was to wait for the lions to come down a little bit from the top of the mountain with the fading light, and that's just what they've done. I know it's not the clearest image, everybody, but up there on those rocks you might be able to see pretty much dead center of the screen. There's a bit of a white patch, and that's the face of one of the lionesses, and then just to the left of her, can you all see that little cub that's busy watching us? Using the cover of a rock to conceal itself and peering at us over that little bit of rock. How cute is that? Now, for the time being, those are the only two lions we can see at the moment, but I'm pretty sure that the siblings of this cub are up there too, and that the second lioness is lying there somewhere as well. Oh, go across to, apparently the wild dogs are on the move again. Let's go see what they're up to.
We've got the puppies, everybody. Here are the little ones. This is just too magical. I don't know how old they are. I think they're about 6 to 8 weeks old now. Hi, little guys. Gee, it's special to meet you. And they're eating what remains of that steenbok kill. We're not going to be able to stay for long. We've obviously got the infrared light on, but it's not dark yet. We're not going to hang around after dark. Ah, what a joy. Don't know how many of them there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 odd. That's great, isn't it? I must just say that this is Theo's very first wild dog sighting ever. And he's got puppies and the kill. Orbs, we're close to the link road that goes to Zoe's from quarantine. I'm just trying to help Aubrey in. Orbs, do you remember where we had that leopard sighting on the termite mound? It was Tundi. I think it was you and me. We're west of the drainage, southwest of the drainage. So just enjoy this while I try and help Aubrey, and he's been looking for them the whole afternoon. try and get a slightly better view now that everyone's relaxed. I know that they're relaxed. Being very silent, and I wonder if that isn't because it's getting dark. As I said that, the adults come in, dispensing a little bit of discipline. Right, Theo, I'll move you now. Let's go around there and see if we can get a slightly better view. Station on the western edge of quarantine. I can see your lights. You can get across the drainage line and see us. There, I think that's about as close as we're going to get. Can we count their little ears? It looks like little, sort of 12 little Mickey Mouses sticking out of the grass. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there are at least 10 here. Now they've gone back to being a little bit more quiet. Now this is a very dangerous time for them because I think they're probably too big to be in a den. And that means that they are going to be vulnerable to other predators. There are no lions around here at the moment though, so they shouldn't pose a danger. They did lose 1 or 2 pups, excuse me, 1 or 2 pups to the Talamati pride. Is Linda Purdy welcoming the dogs to Wild Earth? Yes, quite. Yeah, I can hear you. Just stand by, I'll shine my light at you. This is going to become a negative lock in probably about 10 minutes because we're not going to view them after dark. Yeah, it's much of a muchness. It's going to be tricky either way. Sorry, I'm just going to try and help them get a quick view. Ron, come straight towards my light, but yeah, I don't know if you'll get that big cruiser across there. It's probably best to try from around the other side.
So as the wild dogs are dispersing slowly and probably looking or going to get to the spot where they'll settle down for the evening, these lions are just getting active. Now you can see they're all up, they're moving in a direction. They're actually moving with intent into the wind. These are the younger ones. The large lionesses have already moved up ahead and they're moving a little bit quicker. You can see every now and again they're stopping. They're carefully scanning the area. Some of these young ones, they know the deal. They know what they need to do. They know they stop every now and again to have a look. But what you'll notice is that they don't go ahead of the lionesses. They carefully watch them, see how they maneuver when they split up. And that's how they learn these techniques. So now they've got the lionesses hunting for them, or doing most of the hunting. But not too long from now, they're going to have to start joining in. You can see even the young males joining in. I'm just going to reposition a little bit. Give them a bit of space. That way we'll have a better view as well. It's interesting, this young male, I know he's got an injury, and because of that, he's not been so active in the hunts. But he's still very large and very powerful, and he will most definitely serve an important function once prey actually gets brought down. And just try and keep it down, maybe buy the lionesses some time to do the kill. Now, with this low light conditions as it is at the moment, it's quite tricky seeing things off in the distance. But for these lions, as it's getting darker, their eyesight is basically improving. Got very large round pupils, and all the ambient light goes into the pupil, and right at the back there's a reflective layer of cells that reflects that light back into the eye and brightens up whatever they're seeing. So if there is something out there, they'll definitely be able to see the slightest of movements. So we can see the last lioness moving off in the distance. It looks like they're following a game trail up in that direction. Now where they're going is a very, very tricky spot. To follow them, it is quite dense up there. But from knowing this area, I know that there's a very large clearing in that side. And I'm pretty sure that most of the wildebeest, the impala, and the zebra that came down to have a drink, they were all coming from that clearing. I'm just going to pull a little bit forward, see if we might get another view. I think myself and Owen might have a look, see if we might be able to get another view. But for now, I think that might have been our last view for the evening.
I just want to show you all this magnificent setting, this reflection that we're getting off the water, and then we're going to come back to the little shelbies. Look at these colors. Look how these mountains are absolutely glowing with golden light now. This is one reason why I love spending time in this particular little hole in the ground here, watching for things, because even if there's nothing to see in terms of animal life, it is just spectacularly beautiful out here. So I'm really hoping that Shelley will come back before close of drive. Who knows? But she's gone across another dam. It's in a straight line. It's about 2.5 kilometers from here, but it's right at the back of the mountains. Sheldon's just swum across to our side of the dam now, and all the little ones are just on the bank over there. They've actually just been spending a bit of time preening themselves, getting their little downy feathers in order. They're going down. No. It's just a beautiful afternoon out here. So that female will come back. Shelley will come back, because even at this age, with these nighttime temperatures as cold as they are, she'll be wanting to sheltering them from the very, very coldest part of the evening. So she'll just be huddling down, and they'll actually be sitting underneath her. So I don't know if we'll get her coming back, but while we live, but I'm hoping we will. But yes, how gorgeous is that? It's been such a journey here. Jason says this is amazing, and it really is amazing. And for me, this journey that we've been on with these shell ducks, from seeing the pair here, and then the one leaving missing, and we figuring out they got a nest, and then tracking down the nest, all of you spending time with us looking for the nest and sitting there, and then the little ducklings coming down. This is just like, for me, it's just the best thing in the world. And again, I keep saying it, but wherever you are in the world, I really hope you have a wonderful, wonderful evening or day, and that whatever you end up doing until we meet again with tomorrow morning's drive, just stay safe out there, have a really relaxing evening with family, friends, and just have a beautiful night, and we'll see you tomorrow. Cheers.